Hi, Dr. Patrick. How are you?
Yeah, hi Andy. Nice to see you again.
It's great to see you. With this segment of the market traders, I had some few questions that have been brought up that I wanted to ask you and bounce off of you. In the past, we've talked about using the Gerson therapy if you have cancer, using the Gerson therapy if you don't have cancer, and if it's beneficial. And you've talked about eating and juicing quite a bit and what we should eat and what we should do. And one of the things you've talked about is the vegan diet, specifically if you have cancer. And really, the question I have to you, if you do not have cancer and healthy is a very relative term, understood, but let's say assume you don't have cancer and you don't have a chronic disease, should you be staying away from protein? And what have you have you heard or read just the ideas and stories of people that aren't getting enough protein or being malnourished and that sort of thing? So I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Well, should we stay away from protein? Well, we would die if we didn't have protein. But whenever somebody mentions the word protein, that becomes synonymous with meat, as if meat's the only source of protein. Every time I'm dealing with somebody, almost every time that I'm dealing with somebody, trying to talk to them about the Gerson therapy, they say, but where am I going to get my protein from? And I answer with, well, where does a cow or a horse get their protein from? And where do they get them from? They get them from greens. They're grazing all day long. Greens are loaded with protein. Carrots are loaded with protein. Potatoes are loaded with protein. People think potato is a carb. It is a carb, but it's also loaded with protein. Nuts and seeds are loaded with protein. In the Bible, in the book of Ezekiel, chapter 4, verse 9, you've heard of Ezekiel 4:9 bread. In the book of Ezekiel, it tells you how to make your bread. There's no meat in that bread. But if you make bread that way in Ezekiel 4:9, it becomes a complete protein. You don't need meat. So the problem with this whole where am I going to get my protein from is everybody thinks protein is meat. And then they'll say, well, I don't eat red meat, I eat chicken. Like, that's not meat. But chicken's meat too. And there's a problem with eating meat compared to vegetable proteins. Meat is such a highly concentrated protein. And when you eat such highly concentrated proteins, first of all, it really taxes the pancreas. Your pancreas produces enzymes to help you break down meat, particularly trypsin. Okay? Trypsin is an enzyme that your pancreas produces. Well, animal meats are so highly bound, they're proteins, that the amount of enzymes needed to break down that food is exponentially greater than breaking down fruits and vegetables. And the problem with that is this, twofold. One, everybody thinks the pancreas is just the organ that helps you digest food and utilize sugars. Well, what they don't know is the pancreas is one of the most vital immunological organs, because those enzymes that the pancreas produces, it literally destroys tumors, breaks down tumors, and destroys cancer cells. So when you're thinking about where you're going to get your protein, you really need to get your protein from non-animal sources if you can. You can get your protein from non-fat organic yogurt, or even whole milk organic yogurt. You want non-fat if you're a cancer patient, because tumors really feed on fat. They're hormonal monsters, and hormones are derived from fat, cholesterol. So it's been our experience, and especially Dr. Gerson's experience, that whenever he gave them fats of any kind, really, except flaxseed oil, it caused tumors to grow. But after 6 weeks on the Gerson therapy, we actually start to give about a half a cup a day of non-fat organic yogurt. Because if we didn't give that, believe it or not, the immune system response would start to weaken a bit. But for the most part, 99.9% of your protein needs to come from vegetable sources, because animal proteins are extremely destructive. Not only are they destructive on the pancreas, but the primary reason they're so destructive is they cause acidity. You've probably heard that acidity causes disease. That's everywhere, especially if you're privy to alternative natural medicine. You'll hear that cancer can't survive in a highly oxygenated or can't survive in an alkaline environment, and that acidity causes disease. Well, what does that mean? And what it means is this. When we're talking about alkalinity and acidity, we're talking about pH. What's pH? pH means potential hydrogen. And so acidity is the buildup of hydrogen in the body. Well, there's not a greater source of hydrogen than the breakdown of animal proteins. The acidic ash of hydrogens that it leaves behind is very destructive to the body. Why? The main reason why acidity is so bad for us is it prohibits the production of energy on a cellular level, and here's why. To create energy on a cellular level, which you need to maintain a healthy immune system, and most certainly to cure a sick and dying one, you must be able to properly utilize oxygen, because the way the body produces energy is taking sugars, running them through the mitochondria, and converting them to energy. But if there's no oxygen available, the body will take sugar, run it through the mitochondria, and instead of energy being produced, lactic acid will be produced. And cancer thrives on lactic acid. It's literally food for cancer. And so what's of primary importance in understanding the consumption of animal protein is that you end up getting a buildup of hydrogen inside the cells. And when you get a buildup of hydrogen inside the cells, when oxygen tries to enter into the cells so that the mitochondria can utilize it for energy production, it's literally repelled away. It becomes a matter of biophysics more than biochemistry. Everything has a charge. Everything in nature has a charge, positive, negative, neutral. Well, the positively charged hydrogen ions literally repel oxygen away from the cell it can't enter. So that's probably the most destructive thing when it comes to eating protein. People have a serious misconception that protein is synonymous with eating meat. Not only is that false, but it's a highly destructive form of thinking when we're talking about proper nutrition, because the amount of acidity generated by eating meat is very, very dangerous. Not only that, when you have this buildup of acidity, your body preferentially wants to dump sodium out of your body. Every day your body's trying to dump so much sodium out. Well, when you eat meat, the amount of acidity that's being generated, the body has to preferentially dump that acidity. So if you eat meat, it literally takes the body 7 days to dump the acidity generated by meat. And what will happen is because the body has to preferentially dump the acidity, the kidneys will dump that acidity in exchange for sodium. So when sodium would preferentially want to be dumped by the body, it can't. It'll only dump the acidity, and it'll reabsorb the sodium in exchange of releasing that acidity. What are the complications of that? Well, it's essentially the same thing. You can't utilize oxygen properly, and you can't utilize nutrients properly, because if your body's uptaking sodium, sodium and water are going to enter the cells and swell the cell up so much that oxygen can't be utilized properly. Detoxification procedures, toxins going out, nutrients coming in, it can't function properly. So it cuts off all your energy cycles as well because of those reasons. So if you eat meat, you can't dump sodium. If you can't dump sodium, sodium and water accumulates in the cells. You gain water weight, and you can't run your energy cycle, so your metabolism naturally slows down. So you can get plenty of protein without having to touch 1 ounce of meat. So if I was to recommend something for somebody, how to eat healthy naturally, if they didn't have cancer or any other disease, Simple. When you mix lentils, brown rice, quinoa, millet, oatmeal, when you mix all those things into your diet over a 2 to 3 day period, not all at once, eat oatmeal one day, lentils the next, brown rice the next, quinoa the next. You mix all those together in your diet over a series of 2 to 3 days, and the body will extract the amino acids off of those foods and build its own proteins, its own complete proteins. You don't need meat. And that's the premise of Ezekiel 4:9 in the Bible on how to make your bread. They tell you to mix all those things, and they would make a flatbread out of it. And they would sun-bake it. And that was a complete protein. You don't need meat, plain and simple.
So, again, let's assume that, again, healthy is a relative term, but would it be okay if a person that were to ever eat meat then?
Well, I'm not saying don't eat meat. I eat meat. I don't know if I should say that, but I eat meat, okay? I eat it very rarely. I might eat it once a month. And if you catch me on a bad month, I might have it twice, all right? So I don't see that there's anything wrong with eating meat once or twice a month. But if you're going to do that, you better make sure that the rest of your diet is very alkaline. Because like I said, if you eat a big chunk of filet mignon or something, it's going to take your body a good 5 to 7 days to rid itself of that acidity. So if you're going to eat meat, go ahead.
Got it. Well, I guess that answers my question, but it also begs, I guess, the other question is, let's say, for example, my wife was a vegan briefly for a few months, or for several months, and she lost weight, and you know my wife, she's already very thin. What do you say about that? I mean, is that a good thing, or is she not eating enough of the plant?
That's exactly right. Look, if I stopped eating meat today, because of the way I eat properly, using the premises of Ezekiel 4:9, right? My body, my muscle tone, and my weight remains the same. Because I rarely eat meat, all right? I could stop eating meat for the next 3 months, and I will not lose any weight, because I know how to properly eat and maintain that muscle tone and that muscle tissue. I don't work out, and if you felt my muscles, they literally are as tight as a horse's muscles, because I eat like a horse, okay? And so I can't tell you how many people will tell me, oh yeah, I know so-and-so, and they were a vegetarian, and they looked really sick. And that's because vegetarians don't know how to eat, most of them. They don't understand. They think, you know, well, I'm not going to eat meat, so I'm going to eat potato chips, or I'm going to eat salads all day. All right? If you eat salads all day, chances are, you know, you're not going to maintain the optimal health that you need to. You need to eat things like grains or carrots or legumes. Those things are vital, and those things have been eaten, you know, for millennia in cultures because they're vitally important. So have cultured goods like yogurt or kefir. Those things are vital to maintaining a sleek and well-toned frame. So, you know, if your wife was losing weight, it's just because she wasn't eating properly, even in the realm of vegetarianism.
Okay. I guess that really begs the question, I guess, that I have is, I've read this article just really the other day, and it was interesting because it talked about how the low-fat diet was wrong, in the sense that we're eating all these foods that are not granted, not vegetables in a vegan diet, but it's just like, you know, low-fat butter, low-fat milk, or low-fat this, or whatever have you, and they said that how wrong that was. And the article talked about how the fat in meat what actually does great or well for you because it breaks down or it supplies our body and our intestine with enzymes to break other foods down. Wanted to really, and again, get your opinion on that as far as eating organic grass-fed fat, for lack of a better word.
Well, that sounds like some faulty science personally, but yeah, if you're eating organic grass-fed beef, if I'm not mistaken, the studies have shown that those fats are a little higher in essential fatty acids than the typical fats are in conventionally grown meat.
Right.
And so why is that significant? Well, first of all, to answer your question, a low-fat diet or a no-fat diet is really stupid and ridiculous. Well, it is. It is stupid and ridiculous because your body, it survives on fats, and where it really survives on fats is at the level of the cell membrane. Around your cells is a cell membrane. And that cell membrane determines, based on the electrical potential within it, it determines what can enter the cell and what can leave the cell, and what can't enter the cell and what can't leave the cell. All of that information is programmed into the cell membrane based on its electrical charge. And this goes back to the issue of hydrogen. When we're talking about highly saturated fats, not the essential fatty acids, because essential fatty acids aren't saturated. Those are a double bonded structure. They haven't been saturated. So let's talk about the saturated fats, which meats are loaded with saturated fats. So if you're eating these meats that are very high in saturated fats, particularly conventionally grown meats, well, what are they saturated with? They're saturated with hydrogen. So whatever fats you give your body's going to use those fats to maintain the system, particularly at the level of cell membrane. That cell membrane is made of fats. That's what it is. That's what makes it pliable, is the fat content. So your body's going to take any fat you eat and it's going to use it to maintain that. Well, if you're using saturated fats, which are loaded with hydrogens, it goes back to the acidity issue. Remember, hydrogens are positively charged, and so oxygen is going to be repelled away from the cell. It's not going to be utilized properly. Saturated fats are highly destructive for that reason, because it changes the electrical potential at the level of the cell membrane. So the cell membrane loses its capacity to determine what it should allow in and what it should allow out. On the other hand, things that are higher in essential fatty acids like flax oil, your nuts and your seeds, those are all essential fatty acids which have double bond structures that haven't been saturated with hydrogen. And that gives them an electrical potential. And it's that electrical potential that allows the cell membrane to function properly. So the science says that grass-fed beef, and organic preferably, is much higher in its essential fatty acid content. So I guess if you're going to eat meat, that would be what you would do. But don't let that fool you. That doesn't mean to go out and eat meat every day because it's better for you. It's still going to generate massive amounts of acidity. You can get all the fats you need out of proper vegetarian diet. Eating sprouted nuts and germinated nuts and seeds, having some flax oil, having evening primrose oil, all these different things that are available to us today that contain essential fatty acids.
Got it.
Okay?
Okay, that was really well. That was going to ask my question. Where do you get the essential fatty acids? And you answered it. If we could transition for a moment to juicing or eating raw vegetables and vegetables, to let's say a person that is busy, or let's say they don't have the financial resources to buy organic, or let's say they those aren't even available to you. Now, for disclaimer purposes for our viewers, I remember visiting you in Atlanta, and you had a refrigerator that was full of vegetables that weren't organic, and you made the comment saying, hey, there was no organic vegetables available, so I bought these just off the cuff. So I thought that was kind of giving me a chuckle. And we do that too, so everybody out there, so I don't want people to feel guilty for not eating that. And obviously organic's the best thing, but really the question is that if they don't have that available to them, what is the best thing to do?
Well, for starters, if you go to Costco, you can get a 10-pound bag of organic carrots for $4.50, and I don't know many people that destitute that they can't go and buy a 10-pound bag of carrots for $4.50. And that's here in California. It might even be cheaper where you are. Also, you can go into Costco and you can buy a big organic 1-pound tub of organic lettuce for $3.70. That'll last you 3 days at least. And the carrots, if you juice just 3 or 4 juices a day, will last you at least 2 to 3 days. So for $20, you can get so much raw produce that you can actually start to reverse the beginnings of early stage disease. Okay? Yeah. So for $20, I mean, you can get by doing that alone. Now, all your other foods, Costco doesn't hold. If you go into the frozen section of Costco, they actually have some pretty good organic stuff. They have big bags of organic frozen broccoli, organic beans, organic peas, organic corn, organic fruits. So at Costco, you can get away pretty cheap eating a lot of things organically. All right? Yeah, some of it's frozen. That's not optimal. But you know what? It's better than going and buying the stuff off the shelf that's conventional. Right. So there's ways around them. There's ways around them.
And again, what my wife and I've talked and you know, and again, we're not rich by any means, and we do have resources, but I guess we made it a point of priorities. You know, I mean, you can have cable TV.
Well, you've got 7 kids, Andy.
5.
That's your own fault.
Yeah, but I mean, the point is, it's about priorities. But that's another thing, I guess, is that I wanted to ask you is, I guess, there's organic, and then there's locally grown organic, if you would. And I wanted to, and here in Atlanta, for example, we have a great farmers market, and some of the organic produce that they ship in is, let's say it's from your neck of the woods down in Mexico or wherever it is. It's not from Georgia. And so my point is how much does that affect food to ship it from another country or even another part of the U.S.? What would be your opinion on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, they've pretty much shown that if something's shipped over a 4 to 5 day period, it loses anywhere from 25 to 40% of its nutritional value. That's what they say. I don't know how true that is, especially if it's refrigerated properly, and especially your root vegetables, potatoes, carrots, things like that, or zucchini, things like that. Now, your, other things like maybe grapes or lettuces that are maybe more exposed to the air and to the elements, well, that may be true. But yeah, obviously you want something locally grown and fresh picked that's going to contain more life and more enzymes, and if there's more enzymes, the nutrient availability is going to be much greater as well. But look, with the amount of access that we have today to organic produce, that those things, they really aren't pertinent. I mean, we're curing advanced disease. It doesn't matter if you live in California, where most of the produce comes from, or if you live in upstate New York.
Right.
They're able to go to their local produce, whoever they can get produce from, and they're able to cure themselves of their diseases using the organic produce available to them. Now, talking about getting organic produce again on the cheap. Let's say you don't live near a Whole Foods or a Costco, or, well, everybody lives near a Costco these days, or a Walmart, but let's say you can't get to a Whole Foods and get some of the other specialty things, all right, like organic potatoes, for example. Even the smallest grocery store in the smallest town, the produce manager in the market, he has access to all that stuff in bulk. He just doesn't put it on his shelf because he can't sell it. And if he can't sell it, it's going to go to waste. They lose money. But if you go to him and say, look, I need this, 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 and this in bulk, he can get it for you at unbelievably cheap prices. So he has access to it. You just need to tell him. So you can get a 25 or 50-pound bag of organic carrots, a 50-pound bag of organic potatoes, a 20-pound box of onions. All these things can be bought in bulk and stored for long periods of time at very, very cheap prices by just going to a local produce manager.
Got it. Okay, that's really all I got tonight. I just wanted to, those are some questions that we've read about, that people discuss with us, and that we've had amongst ourselves. So I'd like to encourage all of our listeners, if you have any, we'll post this on your Facebook page, as well as on the Market Traders website. And hopefully we'll post it on your website as well. If you have any questions or that you want us to ask Dr. Patrick, just you can either email us via through the Facebook page, or just comment on the on Facebook. You can ask the questions, and we'll be happy to respond. Did you have anything else to add tonight, Dr. Patrick?
Nope. Just that our clinic is exploding. It's just getting bigger, and we're already kind of beyond maximum capacity. We actually have 2 patients sharing the same condo. So things are going great down here, and hopefully we'll continue to expand, and hopefully this information will get out to as many people as possible so we can do that.
Well, that's great to hear, and you're going to be in Atlanta soon, so I look forward to splitting a beer with you again.
Don't say that here.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
I don't drink beer.
We'll see you soon. So
okay.
Thank you. Good night.
Okay, take care.